Every great civilization begins with small, simple steps. Before the kings, the palaces, and the armies, Myanmar's history began in the fertile valleys along the Irrawaddy River. Imagine a world thousands of years ago. No maps, no borders, just people seeking a place to plant rice, fish the waters, and raise families. These early settlers carved their lives into the land, guided by the rhythms of the seasons and the river's flow. The Irrawaddy, like a great lifeline, nourished the soil and connected distant communities. Villages sprouted along its banks like pearls on a necklace. Over time, stories, traditions, and customs began to intertwine. And Myanmar's land was never isolated, it was a crossroads. Indian traders brought new ideas of religion, art, and governance. From the north, Chinese influences trickled in with silk and bronze. And from neighboring Southeast Asian peoples came new techniques of farming and building. When we think of these early centuries, it's like watching the first strokes of a painting. Each brush of culture, each migration of people, each shared meal around a fire was laying the foundation for something larger. No one in those days could have imagined that from these scattered settlements would one day rise mighty kingdoms and temples that reached for the heavens. But this is where the journey began, in mud and soil, with hands that worked the land and hearts that dreamed of something beyond survival.
Centuries passed, and those scattered settlements began to merge into organized societies. By the 9th century, one city rose above the rest, Pagan. What was once a cluster of villages transformed into a glittering kingdom. Imagine standing on the plains of Pagan during its height, thousands of temples stretching as far as the eye can see, their golden spires catching the first light of dawn. For every temple, there was a story, a purpose. Kings built colossal stupas to display power and devotion. Nobles and commoners alike donated bricks, believing that each offering brought merit, a spiritual currency that would follow them into future lives. It was here that Theravada Buddhism became firmly rooted. The teachings of the Buddha were no longer just foreign ideas carried by monks from India. They became the heartbeat of Pagan, shaping laws, education, and even daily life. The city became a beacon of learning, where scriptures were copied, monks debated philosophy, and artisans carved masterpieces into stone. Pagan was Myanmar's golden dawn, a moment when art, religion, and politics fused into a dazzling civilization. And though centuries have passed, the temples still stand, silent witnesses to the devotion and ambition of a people who dreamed of reaching the divine.
But history teaches us that golden ages are fragile. By the late 13th century, Pagan faced pressures from within and without. Internal disputes weakened the throne, and far to the north, a storm was brewing. The Mongols, under the shadow of Kublai Khan, swept across Asia like wildfire. When their armies reached Pagan, the kingdom could not withstand the force. Walls crumbled, temples burned, and the once proud capital descended into silence. Imagine walking through the city after the Mongol invasion, smoke curling into the sky, statues broken, monks scattering with sacred texts hidden in their robes. Yet, even in ruin, something endured. Buddhism, deeply embedded in the hearts of the people, survived the flames. It was like a candle carried carefully through a storm, flickering, fragile, but never extinguished. Pagan may have fallen, but its spiritual legacy continued, ensuring that the flame of Myanmar's identity would burn on.
After Pagan's collapse, Myanmar did not vanish.
Instead, it became a mosaic of kingdoms, each with its own strengths and ambitions. In the north, Ava rose as a military and cultural stronghold. To the south, the Mon kingdom of Hanthawaddy thrived, known for its maritime trade and sophistication. In the hills, the Shan states carved out their domains, fiercely independent and proud. This era was one of division, but also of richness. Imagine wandering through a 15th century marketplace. Ava merchants selling rice and jade, Mon traders bringing in silk and spices, Shan horsemen with bows slung across their backs. The sound of drums and laughter echoed at festivals where each kingdom showcased its identity. Though unity was elusive, this diversity created a fertile ground of exchange. Ideas traveled, art styles blended, and languages influenced one another. It was a reminder that Myanmar was not just one voice, but many, a chorus of cultures, sometimes harmonious, sometimes discordant, but always vibrant.
In the 16th century, a new power rose to bind these divided lands. From the city of Toungoo, kings like Taban Shweiti and Bayan Naung built one of the largest empires Southeast Asia had ever seen. Picture vast armies marching across plains, their war elephants adorned with armor, banners fluttering in the wind. Kingdom after kingdom fell under Toungoo's might. Bayan Naung in particular was a legend. His empire stretched from the borders of modern-day Laos to the shores of Thailand, from the mountains of Yunnan to the coasts of the Bay of Bengal. But with great size came great strain. The empire was like a massive tree with roots that stretched too thin. After Bayan Naung's death, the unity unraveled. Provinces broke away, rebellions flared, and the empire splintered into pieces. Still, the Toungoo dynasty left a legacy, the idea that Myanmar could be more than a patchwork of states, that it could, under the right leadership, stand united as one nation.
By the 18th century, a final dynasty rose to claim the throne, the Konbaung kings. They were ambitious rulers, building bland palaces in Ava and later Mandalay, showcasing the splendor of Burmese culture. Poetry, dance, and painting flourished under their patronage. But beyond the gilded halls of their palaces, the world was changing. To the west, the British Empire expanded relentlessly from India. To the east, Siam strengthened. The Konbaung kings fought wars to defend their territory, sometimes victorious, sometimes humbled. The last great palace of Mandalay glittered like a jewel, but it stood in the shadow of cannons and steamships. The age of kings was nearing its end, and a new kind of empire was knocking at the gates, one that would not be swayed by elephants or golden spires.
From 1824 to 1885, 3 wars with Britain reshaped Myanmar's destiny. The British, armed with industrial might, clashed with the traditional forces of the Konbaung dynasty. Battle after battle chipped away at the kingdom's independence. The final blow came in 1885, when King Thibaw and Queen Supayalot were exiled to India. Imagine the sorrow of that moment, the royal family, stripped of power, leaving their palace forever. For ordinary Burmese people, it felt like the sky itself had collapsed. Myanmar was absorbed into the British Raj, administered not as a proud kingdom, but as a colonial possession. Railways, plantations, and Western schools arrived, but so did deep wounds. Farmers lost land, resources were extracted, and traditions were suppressed. Yet, under the weight of colonialism, seeds of resistance quietly began to grow. By the 20th century,
those seeds had blossomed into movements. Students marched in the streets, monks preached defiance, and writers called for freedom. During World War II, Myanmar became a battleground. The Japanese invaded, and nationalist forces saw a chance to break free from Britain. For a time, General Aung San allied with Japan, only to later turn against them, realizing true independence required neither British nor Japanese chains. In 1948, his vision bore fruit. Myanmar declared independence, standing once again as a sovereign nation. Crowds cheered, flags waved, and hope surged across the land. After generations under foreign rule, the people finally tasted self-determination.
But freedom proved fragile. In 1962, a military coup seized power, ushering in decades of authoritarian rule. For ordinary families, this meant censorship, economic stagnation, and international isolation. Yet resistance never died. In 1988, students flooded the streets demanding democracy. The military cracked down brutally, but the voices of dissent only grew louder. From this struggle emerged Aung San Suu Kyi, the daughter of General Aung San, who became a global symbol of courage and resistance. Myanmar's story in these decades was one of flickering hope and harsh reality. The people yearned for democracy, but the military's grip remained tight, loosening only when pressure forced it to, and tightening whenever power seemed threatened.
And so, we arrive at the present. Myanmar today is a land of contradictions. Its ancient temples and traditions remain, whispering stories of past glories. Its people are resilient, shaped by centuries of struggle. Yet, its future is uncertain. The push and pull between democracy and dictatorship, between openness and isolation, continues to define the nation's journey. Myanmar's history is not just about kings, wars, and empires. It is about ordinary people, farmers, monks, students, mothers, children who have endured hardship, carried faith, and kept hope alive. This is Myanmar's story, a tale of resilience, of survival, and of the unending search for light after the longest nights. And as history continues, one truth remains: the spirit of the people is unbroken.